And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Rock City Central. And no, we don't have Miss International. We have better than Miss International this time around. We have Mr. Corey Schwitz. And let me tell you, it's an honor to have Corey here. If you follow me and you follow my podcast, you would have saw that his dad, I don't even call him by his first name. I call him just Dr. Schwitz because he's a great guy. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome Corey Schwitz to the podcast. Everybody, Corey Schwitz.
Great to be here, Mike.
It's great. And you know what? It's funny because we really just met in January, I believe, right?
Yes, pretty recently. I knew of you, though. From my dad, a.k.a. Dr. Schwitz. He had really spoken highly of you, and then I'd seen your interview with him, too.
That's right.
So your reputation preceded yourself.
Well, thank you. And it started because your dad was just calling me to wish me a Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday. And it was the strangest thing. It must have been Christmas Eve or the day before. And he was just talking about, how you're doing. And he said, my son, he just started his own business. He's doing this stuff with Salesforce. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm looking for a Salesforce guy. And wouldn't you know it, here you are, you're our Salesforce guy at Blue Owl, which is a company that I work with as well. And everything kind of just came into play. But I kind of want to tell you, I really wanted to see your dad here because your dad is bringing all these beautiful women. They surround your dad. No matter. We went out 2 weeks ago, and
this is true.
This is a true story, and then we'll get to your story. But this is the story. We're sitting there, and we're having this great cousins. We're having a great meal, and this woman at the bar buys 3 of us drinks, me, you, and your dad. And I'm like, oh, maybe it's because of the way I look tonight, and I'm looking great, and Corey's a young guy.
Yeah, I had a similar reaction.
Exactly.
I knew it had to be you or me.
And then all of a sudden, the bartender says, oh, it's the woman there. It was for you, Dr. Schwitz. And I was like, oh, my God. And then the whole night, beautiful women were just coming to the table, and they were flocking all over your dad.
Yeah, I would like to clarify it's mainly... other dentists, orthodontists, and former patients.
But still, he was
specifically.
But there was not one man, not one male walked up and said, "Thanks for the beautiful teeth."
They fawn over him too. They just didn't happen to be at cousins that night.
Yeah, it was all, and we couldn't even walk out. As we were walking out, all we heard was, "Oh, is that Dr. Schwitz?" And you see, when one girl said it, the whole table, and before you know it, he was sitting down having hors d'oeuvres.
He's a popular guy. He's fixed lots of smiles.
Yes, including my daughters. And it's funny, and it all goes back to your dad's reputation. I know it's not about your dad, but I found him because my wife was looking for a dentist for my son Sal, who was just in the room, and to do the teeth for braces, and she came up with somebody, and I'm like, let me do a Google search, and Dr. Schwitz had 5 stars all over the place. And hundreds of people. And I said, you got to give this guy a call. And that's how we found you. And so strangely enough is now that you're working with Owl Rock, your reputation is just like your dad, but in the finance world, and everybody loves you. And let's talk about that. SkyDogOps. Where did that name come from? SkyDogOps.
Yeah, well, I appreciate all the positive feedback, Mike. Definitely have been able to have like good role models to kind of mold myself after and kind of see what works, and really what works is just like delivering an awesome experience at the end of the day.
It's true.
So I started off my career actually in the entertainment world with basically managing ad and marketing campaigns for Broadway shows.
Really?
Yeah.
What are some of the Broadway shows? I didn't know this about you.
Yeah. Motown the Musical.
Really?
Cinderella, some plays like one with Larry
Disney
David.
Cinderella?
No. Rodgers and Hammerstein.
Oh, that's a big difference.
And I've always loved that world, and specifically like the business side of it, but also had just always been drawn to like startups and starting something new. Mm-hmm. And that's when my first startup basically was a mix of something tech related and that space, but slowly gravitated from there to really strictly the technology startup side of things. Mm-hmm. and that's gone in a couple directions, and most recently really picking up a lot of like some hard technical skills and launching this business, SkyDog, which the name is your first question. So about a year and a half ago, I guess now, probably January 2020, mm-hmm. I went on like a week-long backcountry dog sledding and cross-country skiing expedition.
Who does that?
Yeah. So, I definitely have a streak of doing some crazy outdoor stuff, but spent a week up in northern Minnesota. Temperatures went down to like -8 degrees with this basically this group, all sort of unsupported, backcountry dog sledding. So these amazing dogs,
like huskies.
Yeah, but they're mainly like they're sort of all different breeds. There are a lot of mutts. It's not purebred as you would imagine in sort of what they would call.
You see that in
Disney
movies,
dog
exactly right.
Yeah, so we would refer to Disney dog sledding, which is like perfect huskies, and you just imagine you saying, "All right, let's go," and you're but that's just not the reality of it. We would load these sleds up with hundreds of pounds of gear, and most of the time it was just pushing alongside with the dogs, getting stuck on trees, having the thing topple over. And yeah, these are incredible, like really...
Where were you going in the freezing cold with dogs with hundreds of stuff on a sled?
So there's a...
There's got to be a story here.
So yeah, so it was through this program Outward Bound, which is pretty similar to NOLS, the National Outdoor Leadership School, which I did when I was younger. A lot of these trips, and they mainly have trips for sort of younger people, I would say high school and college.
Right.
And I'd also led outdoors trips, mainly like backcountry cycling trips throughout college. So I always, had that desire. I'd been for years and years just in the working world and had this like perfect week off over Christmas break to really do that again. And
freeze your buns off. But no, where were you going with hundreds of pounds on your sled that toppled off and you went into trees?
Yeah, I guess that's the question that people say, like, well, what was the purpose?
Yes, exactly. What's the outcome?
There was no specific destination. We started where we started. We just slept on frozen lakes, sort of made a route, had to reroute as we went there.
You go in a giant circle and you put these dogs through this. Isn't that abuse?
So the dogs,
they loved it, right?
I've never seen happier dogs.
There's no activists that are going to watch this. Are you serious? The dogs really liked it?
Yeah, I would consider myself a dog activist and definitely a dog lover. We're used to seeing the sort of the domestic, really a pet dog. But there's something really even more beautiful in many ways about like these dogs that are working. Obviously, we're familiar with sort of like police rescue dogs, avalanche dogs, and these dogs were really bred and meant to do that. And they're happy the entire time. They're taken really great care of. The sleds are falling over and falling into trees, the dogs are real happy about that. When you start hooking up the dogs to the sleds, you've never seen them happier. It's pretty insane.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, and they work as a great team. It's really just something special. But that was sort of a divergent path to the name, which it came from this. So we had about like 15 dogs that were camping with us.
How many dogs per sled?
So it would just be 2 sleds, two people on each sled, and about I think usually 7 to 8 dogs per sled. So
you had 4 people.
Yeah.
14 dogs in the middle of nowhere for a week?
Yeah, just about. Pretty insane. And yeah, it definitely felt...
In the freezing cold?
Yeah, yes. And very, very cold. Probably have never felt like that ever before.
Can I ask you a dumb question?
Yeah.
How do you go to the bathroom in the middle of the woods in freezing cold?
So you just gotta go.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you just gotta go.
There's no like stop houses over there and we're just gonna go to this little gas station? It's not like that in the wilderness.
There is literally no sign of other human life. So it may as well have been how that area of the country looked thousands of years ago.
Holy cow.
Which is pretty incredible because there's still like, large swaths of the world, but even mainly in the western U.S. and Alaska too, that are just really untouched still and pretty, beautiful and pristine. Actually, so with my company, one of our commitments is every month we make a donation of 1% of our profit to a different nonprofit, and one of those that we commit once every year to make a donation to is an organization that's like protecting that area in northern Minnesota where the dogs were. But this all comes back to the name, which is the name of one of the dogs, which was perhaps the silliest and by far like the furriest dog. All these dogs would get pretty cold and they would warm themselves up by going in sort of a circle. But there was one dog, SkyDog, who's actually, not to tie it back to your business and music and the rock world, named after one of the Allman Brothers, Dwayne SkyDog Allman.
No kidding. I had no idea that was his middle name.
Or nickname, at least.
Oh, okay.
That entire sort of group of dogs that had been brought in were all named after famous rock stars. So you had Bruce, some other ones, Clapton.
Holy cow.
But Skydog was just left a memorable impression on me, and sort of, as I say now, the company Skydog is really trying to strive to have the same sort of characteristics that SkyDog the dog does. So,
bring your clients into
zest.
cold.
Yeah, exactly.
Make them crap in the woods and freezing, and sleep on a lake.
Well, that's sometimes before
maybe that's for you guys.
We'll take a miserable experience or something that's at least
Right.
a challenge, pull you through it, have a great time doing so, and always have that kind of
That's a great story. And I'm so glad we got that on this podcast, albeit 15 minutes to get to that answer. But at the end of the day, you got to say, listen to this podcast, because this is how we got SkyDog. That's a crazy. But, it's even better is when I was talking to your dad, he told me your story and how you got there. And I got to honor you because you have courage. And when I say that is, when we were speaking, he said one day, Corey just comes downstairs and said, I quit my job and I'm going to start my own thing. And I said, did he have anything planned? He said, no, but he knew he would be able to do it. Tell me a little bit about that story. Is that true?
Yeah, so, it was a few months into the pandemic, so I was living in New York, but with kind of no prospects of going outside early on, had kind of made the trip an hour south to my parents' place and was just working remotely there.
What were you doing?
So I was working in a similar kind of business. I had transitioned from a startup where then I was then recruited over from this consultancy that had worked with us that basically was helping us customize, automate all of our sales and marketing software.
In Salesforce?
Mainly Salesforce.
Got it.
And then also touching other tools. So I'd gone from basically leading a sales and partnerships team to then picking up all these technical skills with like how to, customize this software that's so crucial for a lot of these high tech, growth companies.
Right.
So I always had a pretty good network in that, specifically the New York startup scene, and really had a lot of opinions about how I would want to sort of work with clients in a way that's helping them solve technical like problems, but also really understanding first from their business needs and helping them accomplish that and really bringing those together. So they're all all types of businesses that is in a similar space of what we're in. I call it revenue operations consulting, meaning any revenue software tool like Salesforce, like HubSpot, we help them customize and really build it and customize it to their bubusiness. So
it sounds like you were doing really good and in a very good position, and then you just quit.
Yeah, definitely cozy and could you could
have coasted.
I knew I was a couple of years out of grad school and I had a good path ahead, but probably similar to you, I know deep down I could never feel satisfied if I wasn't doing my own thing.
Yeah.
And that's when a couple months into really, or less than that, really a month into the shutdown, there was still a lot of uncertainty about basically everything in the business world. But I knew if you can't rely on your being an employee, just as there's also uncertainty with being out on your own. So totally remotely, there's no sort of office front. Now we're it's 15 months later. They're a team of 5 of us.
SkyDog.
Yeah,
Ops.
across 4 different states.
Are they all named after different rock stars?
Oh, my team?
Yes.
Yeah, no, but we should take that on.
There you go. Well, who would you be?
I'm not. I couldn't answer that question. I have zero musical skill.
Wow. Wow. Oh, all right. Well, then maybe you can have somebody else on your team name you for you. That sounds. So wait, but you basically you quit your job. So when your dad called me, that was in December. So you started your company that following January, March?
It was April 2020. So it's been 15 months.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So we've grown pretty consistently since then. Work with over a dozen companies, mainly fit into either one or two categories. One is venture-backed startups, so companies that have usually raised a few $1 million at least and are scaling aggressively, and also a lot of like alternative asset managers, so private equity, venture capital funds, and there's also a sort of a cyclical nature of those sorts of alternative asset managers also have a lot of portfolio companies they work with and vice versa. Has been good to just really grow the business pretty organically to date, all just based on word
Well,
of
I
mouth
got it.
first.
Yeah, word of mouth. That's exactly the same way with your dad, right? So the apple didn't fall too far from the tree because your reputation, even with the hardest to please over at my place, love you and your work. And I guess in being in the financial world, it's tough to find. That's the first thing. The second is it's also a small little community. They can just talk to somebody else and talk to, like I think you had mentioned the company that was doing that conversion over to our company was mentioning, hey, maybe you could work with us or something like that. I think there was some kind of, they asked you, I think, if you could work somehow or consult with them. And it just attributed to how great you are at your skill, but more importantly, your people skills. So that's super important because people just love your attitude. You know, you're able to get things done in a very quick amount of time. And with 5 people in all of those firms, how quickly you expect to grow 10, 20, 30 people? Because financial institutions now, especially when they're reopening back, they're going to want more and more office, presence. So does that mean you're going to have to hire more to get people in the offices now to help, or is it always going to be remote?
I don't exactly know. I think it would always be on that last question, be a little presumptuous to say we'll be like this in the future because you grow and there are different needs that you might not know about. So I do envision either hubs or headquarters. I think there's already pretty strong New York presence, especially because of the financial clients and just my network. So we'll be in the city a lot. So who knows there? A lot depends on just like how the nature of work evolves. But appreciate all that positive feedback. I will say that they really credit, especially as we've scaled a little bit up from 1 to 5, is just my team. I've always from the beginning wanted to hire for potential rather than experience.
Me and your dad spoke about that as well, and that's the best way to find the best experience or the best people for your particular position.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people say that, and I know you do that, but I noticed that like it's sort of I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, like an in vogue thing to say, potential over experience, but when push comes to shove, if you're a hiring manager or you really don't know and you're rushed, you just want to sort of go with the reliable option. But at the end of the day, that is usually experience. But and you might have the right person with the right experience. But the thing is, if someone's experienced and they also have amazing potential, that probably means they're already pretty well compensated and sort of on their path. What you want to find is the sort of that diamond in the rough before that. And my team is mainly construed of people that didn't have these sort of technical skills before. But I could tell they were either had like a voracious curiosity, a great natural drive.
Resourcefulness is so big.
Exactly, and to credit to them for a lot, because I have sort of this like fear of delegation, and they've really and has been something I've really worked on, because when
Me too. Me too.
I'm not surprised, because I'm just like looking around, you're like everything is immaculate. So then if you're not going to look over it, that means someone else you're going to have to trust someone. So something I'm thinking about is just like, how do you do that at number one, and the biggest is probably who it is, but then also you can't be there in every decision, because then every decision's different. So like a general framework for this is how we operate, this is why we're different, this example situation, like how would you act in talking about that, because then I think that and constructive feedback, ultimately that will kind of have a company that has a unique identity, especially when it's a people business of like, what is the differentiator? It's the people, and also this way we do things.
So you chose the word identity, like the company's got an identity. To me, it's the company has the culture. And I'll say this because when I was going to, I was in Disney years ago with my kid. I think Sal must have been, let's call it 7 years old. And he saved enough money for a little Game Boy or whatever it was. And he bought a cartridge of Pirates of the Caribbean. And we put our carriage on the side. We went on the ride. The carriage was gone and his game. So it was the Game Boy cartridge, and he was crying. And somebody from Disney, a manager, said, "Why are you crying?" He said, we saved up all his money, and he was 7 years old. He bought this brand new cartridge. We left it in the carriage, and it's gone. So the manager said, "Come on, let's go." He picked out that cartridge that was for sale again. So he went back to the kiosk, and he gave it to my son. And I said, "Wow, that must have been, let's say it's $60. who gave that person the wherewithal to say, you know what, I can do this. I'm just making a kid happy. It was part of the culture that he didn't have to go to his manager and call it in and write it out and say, put this in inventory, making sure he was like, here, this is for you. And that's the culture that Disney built. We do the same thing here. So I always tell the people that are working with me, I said, listen, if you make a mistake, it's okay, because I know you've always done it with the right intentions. That's so important, is the right intentions. And the same thing with Kyle. We've worked with him. He's great. He's on top of everything. And sometimes I say, is Kyle with SkyDogOps, or is he a new hire? Because he feels like he's part of what we're doing now.
That's awesome to hear.
So yeah, it's a great fit. It's a really good fit. And it goes back to, I guess, the leadership. Did you learn that from your dad, or that leadership that Knowles you were talking about?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's been from a lot of places, and it's also just a really a work in progress too. But yeah, for me, I obviously, have had family members, also close friends and mentors in the technology world and other places. And I think a place that's probably different than a sort of your normal sort of guy who grew up in New Jersey is these like crazy outdoor trips I've been on.
Yeah.
And I led an unsupported cycling trip across the U.S. from Georgia to California.
Wow.
I have done some crazy mountaineering stuff in my younger days, and along with some recent dog sledding. But in those scenarios, you like really, I think you escape the world and can sort of just focus on that. But you really just like learn a lot about yourself, both the bad, where you could improve on, of like.
Give me an example.
I noticed, when I was 18, I did a month long sort of leadership course in Wyoming mountaineering. And there was just one day where we got lost. This was all very, very backcountry too, like not trails. You wouldn't see anyone. It's all based on topographic maps. So you would just need to see, that peak looks like that on the map. I'll go there. Wow. And there was one day that was, the particularly bad, where blistered feet, get lost, rain's pouring. And I just remember my sort of mentality changed, and I got particularly tired. And a girl who was around my age, maybe a year younger, so she was pretty young herself. We were sort of recapping the day, and she was like, "Corey, you got to believe in yourself a little bit more, because it's like you're strong enough to do this, but I could tell you got down on yourself." And that was like a good like learning lesson of just like seeing that. So, and I think for everything, it's both like positive and negative, of like seeing sort of what your appetite for risk is, and when you can't have an appetite for it, when you should be able to do that. All those kind of at the end of the day, a lot of these decisions will be, unlike business decisions, like actual life or death sometimes. So just like you learning about that about yourself, and also like the positive. I went from kind of like a rambunctious, very friendly kid to realizing, that sort of mentality also can help make people feel comfortable, make people feel like inspired. So put that into it too. But a lot has come from that, and I reflect on that, and other like leaders in the outdoor space that I've like been able to kind of learn from too.
So who's your biggest mentor besides your dad?
The biggest, I don't know if there's a mentor specifically. A couple people that really like inspire me that I know personally. Mm-hmm. One is my good friend who's really grew up alongside him, a couple years younger, so sort of have always looked up to him. Dan Reich, who's a really prominent like New York tech entrepreneur, has started.
Is that the guy we spoke about at Cousins?
Yep. So he started a couple different technology businesses, consumer product goods, a company that's doing really well, and he has this like just mentality where he's always trying to kind of push it, but he's always and so creative, and really can execute over the long haul and see trends as they're coming up. But personally has always been like so supportive of me, like as he's raising like millions of dollars, scaling these companies, he's always taking the time to like reach out to me, whether it's providing introductions, like mentorship. So definitely look up to him there. And I would say also this company that I worked for in the outdoor space for 4+ years every summer of college, their founder, Tom Costley, is this really incredible guy. He's created this this company where like middle and high school kids have these amazing challenges in the outdoors. And I know I was actually a student on one of the trips before I led for the company when I was in high school, and it really changed my perspective and what I was capable of. So he's built this great organization that's I know created a lot of great leaders. So definitely
he should watch the podcast. I'm sure he'd love to be honored, right? I mean, how often do you tell somebody you were a mentor from a successful person? But another crazy thing that I learned about you just last 2 weeks ago is when you told me you moved to California. I'm like, well, yeah, it was a 6-month bed and breakfast. Now I don't have a place to live, and my Peloton somewhere else now. So
it is in storage.
Just the courage to quit your job, move to California with no family and real friends. Or you might have family and friends there, but you're leaving the state of New Jersey. You rent a bed and breakfast. Or not a bed and breakfast, but whatever it is, for 6 months, Airbnb, and then you're sitting there going, yeah, I really don't have a place to live anymore.
Yeah, well, that was kind of like an easy decision for me, I guess, because, I think people have always, like, thought, like, oh, if I only had the freedom, the time, the money, and I understand there are often limiting situations having kids, and it does put you in one place, but regardless of sort of everything going on with the world, this is a business that is digitally native and kind of took advantage of that and really hopping across the country. Have worked from LA, Colorado, Seattle, and one of my clients joked that every time we come on our weekly call, she plays "Where in the World is Corey?" But it's obviously a lot of like the world has been in turmoil the last year, but have been able to kind of like take advantage of that and at least see many parts of it, and nothing kind of holding me down. I guess to you that sounded like a dream.
Yes, I was listening to that story, and then you got a girlfriend who's kind of in the music business.
She is,
and she's traveling the same, and it's like you got the perfect life. So let's get back now to your girlfriend who was supposed to be here. We rearranged this entire week because she was going to be here. She's not here.
That's my fault.
That's okay. Well, actually, you took the blame last week. You're like, I screwed up. She's definitely going to be here next week.
I just constantly screw up. But
so tell me about your girlfriend.
She's pretty entrepreneurial herself. She laughs if I describe her as that Rebecca. But yeah, she's both a songwriter for pop musician herself, also graphic designer, and has some other cool niche like creative businesses.
And she can go anywhere in the world and work just like you.
Yeah, I guess pretty much. And I think sometimes it helps to be in the studio, but since everything's going on, has also transitioned to a lot of kind of just Zoom collaboration. So have really been able to have fun and take advantage of that.
That's awesome. So where do you expect yourself to land now that the world is opening up?
Well, right now, home is Los Angeles. But
you were there for 6 months. You were here for 30 years. How is home Los Angeles? Oh wait, you're gonna pitch a tent like all the homeless. I'm like, you got to think that you just pinch a tent and you got an address.
I have lived. I was doing the math. A little while ago, I've lived over a year of my life out of a tent in various places, so it wouldn't be abnormal, but not continuously.
Right.
I think the longest was probably 6 or 7 weeks.
Weeks?
Yeah.
Where do you go for 6 or 7 weeks?
Well, just
the Los Angeles Expressway.
all over the U.S.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where do you get that? I mean, I don't see that in your dad.
He actually is. A lot of it came from him. He's really a big outdoorsman. I've always said he's always he would love to be, if anyone, like a Teddy Roosevelt or Ernest Hemingway type character. So yeah, he's been to a bunch of the national parks, and is the one that really pushed my brother and I to really be outdoors, which we both have a big affinity for. It's harder to do it as you kind of get in the day-to-day
not
slot,
for you, because you just get your laptop and that's it.
Still need good Wi-Fi.
You do. You need good. So your home is Los Angeles. So yeah, I love. We spoke about California as well, but there's just so much turmoil in California. They're trying to kick out their mayor, or not. The governor rather. And so there's a lot of political things too. But we also spoke about the tents. My wife was there 3 weeks ago, and from the airport to the hotel in Los Angeles, or my daughter's apartment, all you see is across the parkway is tents.
Yes,
that's all you see. And I think it was somebody that said that near Oprah Winfrey's house, all you see is, somebody said that to me, all you see are tents. My buddy who just came back. He said, all you see are tents lined up on the same highway that leads right to Oprah Winfrey's house.
Yeah, that's sad. There's, I guess, a great American dichotomy there.
Yeah.
But, it's...
Jersey would love to have you back.
I guess the sunshine is appealing for everyone.
That is true.
It's been pretty good. But yeah, it can be pretty flexible, and as I said, most of my clients are in the city.
Yeah. How does that work with the time zones? I mean, even 3 hours before.
You just have to, I think, be really on East Coast hours. We've had clients.
4 o'clock in the morning, you getting up?
I try to avoid that. Definitely try to avoid that.
Wow, because that's a tough one.
I have a couple clients in the Eastern Hemisphere. So one in Nigeria, one in Finland. So we'll sometimes have to accommodate those schedules. Has definitely adjusted to that work-wise. But it is nice, if you're starting early, being able to end your day.
You
earlier. Mentioned that. Yeah, you said by 2:30, 3 o'clock, things are really winding down, and you get the rest of your day. That's a great thing. Yeah, exactly. But it's I think a lot of people probably have realized, especially if they have the fortune of having sort of a technology first position or information job to begin with, that a lot of these could be done remotely. It'll be super interesting to see, again, how the nature of work
I'm glad you
is.
brought that up, because I'm very comfortable working from home, because my commute's 2 hours each way. So you figure 4 hours a day times 5 days a week, that's an extra 20 hours that my company's getting of me. Mm-hmm. So I'm giving them, let's say, an extra week or so. But the bottom line is, I think there's some people with the older mentality that says, hey, you got to be on site. But if you can manage a company, so your employees that work for you and with you, if they said to you, you know what, Corey, I'm moving, they'd still have a job.
Yeah, I mean, that would be zero question whatsoever.
Wow.
One of my colleagues sort of spent the summer hopping around a little bit, visiting family in New Jersey, New York, Illinois, and he's based in Florida. So the only difference is really a different background. And I think it's kind of shown some truth of what is possible.
That's right.
And that the person, I will say, there's a big benefit to being in person, and in my opinion, that's really getting to know people and socializing in a way that you can't.
That's true. You can't do it on a Zoom call.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And my team and I met up in New York and worked a few days there earlier this summer. It was the first time any of us had met in person.
Wow.
And you could tell the energy was really different. You could also tell there was a lot more distractions because of side conversations going on.
That's right.
So there is sort of those benefits. I noticed a lot of my friends were only saying positive things about this immediate shift to work from home. That's because they were sort of already 9-10 years in their career, knew where they were, had their network already built up, and now could be focused and didn't have to commute. Where I feel really most badly for is these kids that are just out of college, because they're they usually aren't living with anyone else.
That's true.
They just don't get to build up that network as closely.
That's a great point.
Which has been one of my the most valuable things in my career.
It's true, but you know what? To that point, though, I've been doing this for 23 years, IT, and this pandemic had the ability that I can actually sit down and have dinner with my wife every night. The first time in over 2 decades. And I liked it, it's great. We eat dinner every night together. We talk more. We spend more time together. And it's not like taking away from the work. It's actually making it easier. So I don't have to miss dinner. I can have dinner and I can continue to go back to work. So there's so many benefits. I just hope those folks who are unlike you with that mindset, who have, a little bit think out of the box to say, work from home, and, even if it's a hybrid thing, where hopefully it'll go that way, but we'll see what happens, I guess, the next few months.
Ultimately, if companies are too strict, I think that
they're going to lose talent.
You're going to struggle with talent.
Yep.
But also you can't, on the other side of it, I think some companies are a little bit too excited about just using it as sort of a cost-cutting thing to not have office space. So something for the foreseeable future will be remote, but something I want to do is just a quarterly offsite with the team. So
and that's great. Team building events. We do that here every quarter. We do team building.
Where have
events.
you gone?
So we don't go away. We just did like the escape room,
Cool.
or we went to that golf thing,
Top Golf.
Top Golf. We all
Big
get
fan.
there. We rent out a whole section. And we have great times doing that. We have big pool parties in my backyard, volleyball
That's
games.
great.
Yeah, I mean we do backyard barbecues.
And you're already working side by side, but it's a nice little moment to
It is, because
work out
I'm here at night to do the podcast. They're here during the day, teaching the kids and stuff, and I'll do some training. But it's great to have things outside and just show that you really care about them, not just the fact that they're working with you. So that's important. So usually at every time we end these podcasts, I even asked your dad. You're probably even familiar with the question if you got that long. I used to, I still do. I love Mustangs, and the first time I saw my first Mustang was on Coney Island Avenue in Kings Highway with my dad. And we're driving to Norm's Music, which actually this guy Norm, I should have him on a podcast. He lives not that far from here. Mm-hmm. He had his own music store, and I saw a Mustang parked at the gas station. I was like, "That is a beautiful car, Dad. What is it?" He's like, "That's a Mustang." And I used to have or want one. And the long story short is he never did. And my first car was a Mustang. But all throughout my entire life, I've had Mustangs. And probably about a decade ago, I had a '66 convertible actually made for me. And I put the VIN number as my son's birthday. It's a beautiful car. And I was parking it in my garage. The garage door was coming down. My dad was there. I said, "Dad, I love this car." And as the garage door closed, he goes, "I was just at Mass, and the pastor was talking to everybody and said, everything that we own one day will be owned by somebody else. The car, the house, your clothes." He said, "What are you in it for?" And at that time, 10, 15 years ago, I had no idea what that meant. But now I know what that means. I mean, what are you in it for? What's your legacy? What do you want to leave behind? Do you want to have kids? Do you want to pass on SkyDogOps to somebody else? What is your song that you want written? I should say.
Well, definitely different things I would say on the personal and business side, but definitely, obviously, want to build a family. But on the business side, I would say what's motivating for me is definitely independence, and I think for me. I like being able to have control of sort of creative decisions, business decisions, and that doesn't mean like firm control, but that means be able to kind of make decisions that make me happy. I'm definitely could tell from like a young age was not the type of person to even be good at kind of sucking up to a boss.
Yeah.
And I've had amazing bosses.
Yeah.
That are dear friends now, but I would say it's being able to deliver great work that ultimately like creates independence and kind of like freedom of choice of different projects, because I don't envision you always doing kind of the same thing. Even with the business, I think we'll evolve from just services to actually developing software products, and we'll see kind of where that takes us, sort of open to that road, but really being able to put this creative stamp on it to ultimately kind of bring out that independence. Because ultimately, even if you have a high up position in a company, you can't just make that decision, all right, I want to go into this industry or this. Right. For better or worse, can wake up and do that and get the buy-in with my team, and they're awesome. I've been so excited about that. And want to continue that for sure.
And that's the gift you're giving your team, because there could be somebody, let's call it a Kyle, because that's the only one I'm really interacting with, who actually takes it a step further. One day has his own SkyDogOps. We'll call him Bruce's Ops of another. And he believes in that same independence, freedom, and creativity that he's learned from his mentor. And I'm sure you're his mentor.
Yeah.
So that's a great pass.
Yeah, and that's a great point too, because like I think we kind of have these when we bring on new people to the team. It's I heard someone speak about this. It's kind of strange. We just say, "Great, you're on the team, and we expect you to be here as long as possible." I think a healthier way to think about it is like this sort of terms of service for a role of when I bring someone on, like they're gonna get a lot out of it, all this learning, all these connections. The company itself will also benefit from right. their efforts, but ultimately. It's not going to be forever, and people may go in different industries, different professions right. entirely, but that's I think true. There's a lot to take from it. The first company I worked for in the theater world, they had these like awesome going away parties for people, where they would have everyone sign this giant card and a big celebration. And you usually don't see, it's usually the other way around. It's usually kind of someone leaves the company and it's a little bit hush hush, let them go on their own way. And I think that was just a sign of like maturity and confidence on their part, and also that like everyone's on their own path, and we're like you getting the most value and kind of enjoyment and fun out of it. So what's important.
It's like they graduate, like you're becoming a son, and then you're an adult, and then you go out and move to California, and you live in tents. But it's the same thing. It's you get your independence now. Your parents didn't say, we don't want anything to do with you anymore. They've congratulated you. They've instilled, a great kid, and now you go out into the world. So, I mean, just the way your dad leaves the same legacy, right? You're doing the same thing at SkyDogOps. The way they did at your other firm with I'm sure you got a big card with everybody's, signing on it and a nice going away party. But it goes to show you're a great guy. You come from a great family too. So I wanted to honor you and thank you so much for being on the show. And hopefully you'll be you'll be in Seattle next week and you'll watch it. You and the family.
That'll
be a family affair.
That'll be great. Yeah, the first time we're all reuniting and.
Is there electricity in the tent when you guys are going away to Seattle?
Yeah, we're all bunking up at my brother's place.
Oh, okay. So there'll be electricity.
So it might it's going to be more cramped than a tent.
Got it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Corey Schwitz. Thank you very much.